welcome to Dub at the Cup on another rest day. And as I've been saying, with the rest days, we've got to have good guests on. And yet again, we've lucky enough to have Grace Gill, who is, I don't know how to describe you, Grace, but welcome to the show.
Pokuah, I'm intrigued. Go ahead.
No, it's just there's so many titles to apply, and I don't want to use the wrong one. But Grace, it's lovely to have you on the show. And lucky as always, we are joined by Teo Pellizzeri, a great commentator for the A-Leagues. Teo, how are you?
And the Australia Cup, Pokuah. I warned everyone yesterday that Floreat Athena versus Western Sydney Wanderers was going to be memorable, but not quite as memorable as 4 World Cup quarterfinals, which we are about to enjoy over the next 2 days. And there's only one we need to start with. Grace, why are Australia now favourites to win the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup?
That's a great question. Look, I think it's been said before, but some of the giants of this tournament have fallen out far too early from what I think anyone could have picked or anticipated. So now you'd have to say that, particularly on the Aussie side of the draw, the path has somewhat been paved directly to that final. So if they keep doing what they're doing in the way that they are, then there's a very viable chance that we could see the Matildas in the final.
No. This isn't about who's fallen by the wayside. This isn't about who's gone out. Why are Australia now the favourites? What are they doing that has made them so good?
Yeah, well, you know what? I would argue that it is a little bit about who's not there, and sometimes luck is on your side. But with that, you also need to perform. So there's no easy games in a World Cup. But for the Matildas, I think the reason why they are now perhaps favourites going into these final few games is what we've seen from them in the last couple, especially. We saw a couple of stumbles early on. We've seen some areas that have needed to be ironed out. And I'd argue that in the game against Denmark, it still wasn't a complete performance by any means. But given that they're producing results in the way they are, and there's still further room to the ceiling that what the Matildas can provide, look, I think they're in every chance to be in the final.
Do you honestly, in your heart of hearts, think that any of the other 7 teams are playing better football than Australia at the moment?
Yes, I do. I think Japan are. I think
come on. Japan, really?
Yeah.
That's just looking at their record. I think Japan is a paper tiger. They're about to get P&P'd and bruised and battered by Sweden and set pieces and aerial barrage, and everyone will go, gee, Japan were good, and then they actually had to play someone.
But that's the thing about a World Cup, is that you come up against different types of opposition who in some nations' favour will be their physicality, and in other nations' favour will be their technicality. And if you can bring all of those things together in a game, yes, Japan perhaps haven't been tested in a way that they've got a shorter team, a younger team. Sweden, on the other hand, physical, taller, more dominant presence in set pieces. Of course, that's going to be a massive test for Japan, but now for them, their test is how they can counteract that and how they can get a result against a team that has everything that they haven't yet faced.
You know, Grace, I see the reason Teo is going at your Japan pick is because Japan beat Spain, who Teo picked to win the competition. So I think he's feeling a little bit slightly sensitive about the whole situation. But I've got to agree with you, Grace. Japan have been phenomenal the way they've played their football throughout this tournament. For a team that, transition football sometimes can be so deceiving because it's just, you're just reacting. But they seem to do it with such a purpose and intent the way they go forward. And I think we saw Sweden play against the United States, who are not as big as them, and they still didn't do much against them. So I don't really know. I think that Japan can actually hold up against Sweden quite well.
Well, when we talk about the quarterfinals, do we want to just start and do the preview of that game? Because I will say Sweden were outrageously lucky. Everyone rightfully talking about Zecira Musovic and the amazing goalkeeping performance. But a few other things in that game also had to go Sweden's way. A lot of people, I think the United States had been so bad in the group stage that they found it a refreshing change that they weren't bad and played sort of well in order to create those handful of chances which Musovic saved. But Grace, when you look at this match in New Zealand, Sweden had to come to Melbourne. Now they go back to New Zealand. They have not been brilliant in this tournament by any stretch, whereas Japan, as you mentioned, have. So who wins and why?
Yes, well, to our point from earlier before, these are 2 very different teams. The dynamic of these teams are so in such contrast of each other. So we've got Japan, a technical team that have been really, really clinical in the chances that they have had. In their game against Norway, they had 4 shots on target. 3 of those goals went in. So in the final third, where they do put their chances away, they're so impressive. And you can't say the same about Sweden, but what we do know about Sweden is that where they have proved really dominant is in set pieces, in those physical battles. There's been articles and analysis written on Sweden's corners and the way in which they deliver a ball into the box for Ilestedt to be the target. So, of course, coming up against USA and Japan too are going to be so mindful of that and have to come up with ways to counteract their strength. If Japan can do that and can nullify what we know to be Sweden's dominance, then I think Japan are going to win, because I think when they do have their chances, they'll be more clinical to what Sweden can be.
Can I just say one thing that I found really strange with Sweden getting away with it against the United States is, even more so than some of the saves, there was one corner that they were defending where Ilestedt, eyes closed, arms flailing, literally did everything she could to try and commit a handball and give away a penalty, and was just incredibly lucky that she didn't actually touch the ball. I guess when the heat is really up, Grace, people, they break character, and the desperation of a situation means that people can make mistakes that you would never otherwise anticipate they might make.
Of course, you see that happen in high pressure situations when people are squeezed, sort of true character comes to surface, and there's no better time for a squeeze than a quarterfinal or final of a World Cup. So I'm intrigued. I think from what I have seen, Japan will have the edge, but as I said, they'll have to figure out how to nullify Sweden's strength, which is their dominant physical presence.
Pokuah, play it straight. Who's winning and why?
Japan, because they play a little bit better football and I want them to win.
Well, if you want them to, that sounds like a good enough reason for me. The earlier game that day is Spain against the Netherlands. Now, the suspension of Danielle van der Donk has dominated the build-up to this match, because it felt as though if there was one player who could counteract the way Spain liked to play for the Netherlands, it was her. Grace, just how big an absence is this?
Yeah, honestly, I think Van der Donk not being in this Netherlands side is massively going to change their midfield. The work that she does, she's a ball winner. She doesn't mind getting stuck into those physical challenges. She does the dirty, gritty work, and she wins back possession that many times for the Netherlands that without her, I think they're going to be a little vacant in the centre of the park. I wouldn't be surprised if they look to play a more direct type of game against Spain for that reason, to avoid their midfield somewhat. Of course, they do have Jill Roord in there that who I really rate as a midfielder, but she's more of a deep line midfielder, just floating in and around in front of the centre backs. And she's a world-class player. But yeah, I think we can't really understate the work that Van der Donk does. But honestly, Tay, I'm a little hesitant to say anyone but Spain's got to win now, given they're your hot favourite.
No, actually, the reason I think that the Netherlands are a great chance is because we saw Spain's resilience was virtually non-existent once Japan scored against them first. And they love things on their own terms, but they do not like having to chase a game. No,
and to your point about that game against Japan, 2 very technical teams in Japan and Spain. I'll jump back here around, but what really struck out to me in that game was, yes, Spain love holding the ball. They love having possession. In that game against Japan, Japan had 22% possession and still won the game. So I think now when we jump forward to this game, Spain against the Netherlands, Spain are going to have most of the ball. They're going to have most touches. They're going to move the ball around really, really well. And I think Netherlands are going to try and play, as I said, a little bit more of a direct style, maybe bypass the midfield, because obviously the strength in that Spanish midfield is just unbelievable. So yeah, look, I think Netherlands are just shading this one. Teo, sorry to go against your hot favourite there.
You've just taken what Pokuah said and ran with it.
I have, absolutely.
Good job, Grace. Great job.
The other thing I wanted to ask is, have the Netherlands kind of sneakily been the best coached team at this tournament, given all the disruption and outspoken players and backlash against Mark Parsons and the failure at the Euros, the seeming misuse of Viviana Miedema at the Euros, and now she's missing this tournament injured, obviously. But is the whole actually quite a bit greater than the sum of its parts for the Netherlands? Or are they simply performing to expectations now that they've got a more harmonious team environment and a coach that the players want to play for?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think, and, please feel free to suggest otherwise, but I felt as though despite their dominance historically, I felt as though the Netherlands coming into this tournament almost weren't pegged as favourites, and everyone was looking to your USA and to your Germany as the hot favourites. And Netherlands, despite being in the final last tournament, kind of weren't in that conversation as much, or maybe that's just sort of my awareness of that. And I think for that reason, they've somewhat flown under the radar, and whether that's coaching, whether that's personnel, whether now they can do that without a Van der Donk in there as well, is going to be a really big test for them. But yeah, I do think that they have kind of carefully glided through this tournament and done that in a really good way, that they've now put themselves in such a wonderful position up against Spain, who have had their own difficulties, as we're well aware of.
I mean, to be fair, it's pretty tough to say, yeah, Wiegman's no longer the coach and Miedema's not there. But hey, I think they're going to be better. Like, you'd have to be pretty brave to make that call. So I don't blame anyone for jumping off them. Pokuah, in this instance, are you staying with the Netherlands, or do you think Spain... Basically, can Spain score first? I don't think Spain can win if they don't score first.
I think I'm going to have to go with Spain, which, it hurts me a little bit to say that, but I think the Spain are going to win, because that midfield battle, I just think it's going to be too much work for the Dutch midfield to have to handle throughout the entire game, the movement of all the Spanish players there as well. And I think they're going to need a really exceptional game from Gill Roord, who's been really good throughout this tournament, but it's going to be a lot of pressure to put on one person. And I think DVD losing her is just one player too many, without Miedema already not being in the squad.
Grace, before we talk about Australia-France, take us through what your Saturday morning and afternoon will entail. You don't have to give away...
3 coffees, Grace?
Well, you don't have to give away any trade secrets if they have to stay top secret. Broadly speaking, how will you be preparing it for this game?
Yeah, well, no trade secrets to give away here, but most of my preparation will be done in the next couple of days. So on Friday and lead up to the game, Saturday morning, bit of travel up to Brizzy. And then, you know what, it's a big afternoon. We're into hair, we're into makeup, we're into wardrobe, we're at the stadium hours before kickoff. There's some pre-game work to be done. And then the big show, which I think, judging by the last game up in Brisbane, was pretty spectacular. I don't know about you guys, but my time up in Brizzy, there was a real sense of Matilda's support around the city, like more so than other places I have visited. Jerseys everywhere, scarves, there was signs, there was banners, there was such a buzz, and it was a really, really cool feeling around it. So I'm hoping that this one, I'm quite confident that this one will be really similar, if not even more so.
I think it's the function of the stadium. It's Caxton Street and the bars and the funnel of the way people walk to the ground. But I also think, and this is purely anecdotal, don't come after me, Australian Bureau of Statistics, but I really do think that a lot of people who the only game they got tickets for was the second game, and that meant having to fly to Brisbane. And the number of people I saw from New South Wales and from Victoria who were in Brisbane for that game, because that's the one they got tickets for, I think that contributed to that feeling of the city centre and the city of Brisbane feeling like it was kind of Matilda Mania. And I guess all bets are off for the knockout rounds, Grace, but given that you are so busy pre-game, have you been able to drink in some of that pre-game experience and sort of feel the World Cup and it not purely be a work event for you, but still a World Cup for you?
Yeah, I've been really mindful to do exactly that, both when I am working and in a few brief opportunities when I haven't been working on the games. But on the days that I have been working, there's moments before kickoff when we've sort of done all the checks prior to going live, and I've had to really pause and try and soak it up, because they're really special moments and they're over so quickly. And I think there's a real risk that when you are working on a tournament like this, that you just get caught up in the momentum, and understandably so. But there have been a few moments of pause that are, quite emotional to appreciate what's going on before us. And I was also lucky enough to get along to the Netherlands-South Africa game, and that was really cool, just to be in amongst the crowd and to build on that atmosphere. So yes, I've really made note to make the most of those little moments as well.
When you say, giving pause in the little moments, can we probe? Is there one that sticks out or stands out in your memory as, hey, it's a World Cup in Australia, how did I get here?
Yeah. I ask myself that most days. Yeah, definitely the first game at Stadium Australia, I was really conscious that before kickoff, when the stadium was full, when all the fans had piled in and they've got the lights down in the stadium, and, I'm not yet working, as in I'm not live, I'm just waiting in those moments. And yeah, really had to take a deep breath and just sort of look around and try and absorb that, because they're pretty special.
Obviously you've been to quite a few games. Was there been a game that's, it does that non-Matildas game that you've been like, oh, wow, this has been incredible to witness?
To be honest, it's just that one non-Matildas game in the Netherlands and South Africa.
What a great game to go to.
It was a really fun game to go to. But other than that, there've been ones that I have been working on. So because of that, trying to make the most of those little moments between work.
On the pitch, what's changed since the friendly? What do you think still holds true?
Yeah, good question. I think the friendly we saw, as I cast my mind back, a really good performance from the Matildas. We saw a goal from Mary Fowler that happened when, the likes of Sam Kerr and Caitlin Ford weren't on the field. And since then, obviously, a lot's happened, and Sam Kerr being the biggest storyline around that. I think we've seen a couple of key things. One is the shift from Caitlin Ford out to the left, which has really opened up her expansive role and her comfort. And I think that's helped the Matildas massively. I think Hayley Russo is obviously having a wonderful tournament. She's the kind of player who can at times be incredibly impactful with her pace and power. But in this tournament, she's had that end product, which is so important for a striker, not just for their confidence, but for her to actually finish in those moments is obviously been a difference maker in a few occasions. So there's a few things that are coming into play really nicely. Em van Egmond coming back into the side. When she had her first start in over 300 days for the Matildas, I think there was maybe some question marks around how she'd go, but she's played a role that I've seen her playing some of the best football for the Matildas in years. She's playing simply, she's smart, her touches have been really neat and tidy, and I think she's unlocking some final third passages of play for the Matildas. So I think there's a series of things that have come together really nicely for the Matildas, and obviously the hope is that they can pull that all together come Saturday.
When you mentioned Van Egmond, and we see so many players at the top of their game walking on air, super confident at the moment, have the planets aligned, or could you dare to say that you did see this coming, or there was some point on the journey when both the results and the performances weren't there, that there were enough little signs that it could happen for Australia in such a spectacular fashion?
I'm not sure. I would say I saw it coming. You can't quite predict how an individual is going to play or how it's going to work in the broader setup of the team. Fortunately for the Matildas and for Matildas fans, those little details have come together really well. I think, again, to touch on Van Egmond playing in more of an advanced role, the type of football she likes to play is 1-2 touch, simple passes, quick passes. And the number of times we've seen her play, a one-touch pass to break the line for the likes of a Caitlin Ford or a Mary Fowler has been a real joy to watch. So I'm really happy for her because I think she's always had that capability, but we've seen a while where she hasn't been playing to her potential. So it's nice for her to come back into the side and to have that. And you'd say that's true of Mary Fowler as well, a player who's obviously struggled to get minutes at Man City and needs confidence because she's still a young player. And I think sometimes we put this world of expectation on a 20-year-old and the fact that she's now playing and having those moments that we know she's always capable of is really good to see.
From a simple point of view, Sam Kerr, starter or bring her on as a sub?
Yeah, you know what? You say it's a simple question, but we've seen a bit that perhaps this ain't such a simple question.
No, but this is the great thing about this World Cup because people who have not talked about football in their lives are having this exact same conversation. Yeah. And that is what getting swept up in a World Cup is all about. So you know what, Grace? They want to hear from you because you're the expert that will no doubt sway people having that conversation over the next 2 days.
Well, what I would say, the first thing is that moment when she slipped, I'm curious to see her recovery from that game, how her calf was, whatever it was, whether it be her hip flexor, her groin, it looked really uncomfortable at that moment. So whatever sort of level of fitness she's at, I'm really curious to see. With that in mind, I would be not surprised at all if she starts again on the bench. Seeing how the team goes against France, again, she's got an incredible impact if she needs to be used, to have a player like Sam Kerr come off the bench at whatever point in the game. I mean, we saw the noise that produced against Denmark and a pretty spine-tingling moment. So, yeah, I really would not be surprised if we see her starting on the bench again.
From your perspective, Grace, what do the Matildas need to do in order to get the win against France?
I think, again, it's been clinical in the final third because we've seen over the last 18 months or so in the Matildas games and under the Tony Gustafsson reign that there's been games where they just have not been able to finish their chances. In this tournament, fortunately, what we are seeing is players that we've mentioned multiple times already on this podcast that have had really good tournaments and are finishing. And to use the example of Caitlin Ford's goal, obviously a beautiful ball from Mary Fowler, and a great run and finish. But on another day, depending on the team's luck, the goalkeeper stops that because it went through her legs. So there's these little moments that are falling in our favour that we're so grateful for as Matildas fans. So I think it's going to be about making the most of those moments. Of course, we know we've got a very mobile front line, and Wendy Renard, she's a great, but she's not the most mobile player. And I think they're really going to try and target that. And of course, our midfield as well. There's been a lot said about Gorry and Cooney Cross and how they match up and control the midfield.
So I'll get your tip for England versus Colombia. I'll let you off the hook, Grace, because guess what? You've got to go and broadcast the game, and you've got to stay impartial to an extent. Of course, everyone's barracking for Australia and wants Australia to win, but I don't want to put you on the hot seat and ask you for an exact score or anything, because some people might take their money to certain institutions and decide to act irresponsibly. So give me your prediction instead for England versus Colombia, please.
Yeah, I'm hesitating because the logic in me says England is going to win, but there's this part of me, there's this little part that says that Colombia is really going to trouble them, is really going to push them. We know Colombia up front are very mobile, and at times England have looked a little susceptible at the centre half position. So I think England are going to edge this one, and I'm going to say it'll be 2-1.
Have you been able to comprehend that 6 million Australians now know who you are after the other night?
No, I haven't. It's something that I try not to think about too much, because when we see those numbers come through, obviously extraordinary. But then to actually think, wait a minute, that's 6 million people listening to my voice. It's a bit of a strange feeling.
Can you leave home?
Of course I can.
Now, don't forget, Grace Gill played and won the W League as a player, the A-League Women's, the Liberty A-League. And if you want to see people like Grace Gill at the beginning of their careers, playing through their careers and going on to play for the Matildas like Grace Gill did, you can get the Liberty A-League Pass. It's back for 2023-24. Any child under 16 can watch their Australian football heroes free with the exclusive Liberty A-League Pass. Go to keepup.com.au/LAP. That is for Liberty A-League Pass. Pokuah Frimpong, bring us home.
Well, thank you, Teo, for doing an excellent job as always on this pod. And we're going to see you for the remainder of this tournament, obviously.
I assume so, yeah, unless unless something happened that I wasn't told about. Actually, Grace, just before we go, you have been listening to Dub at the Cup every day. Which current A-League player has been your favourite guest?
Oh, there's several that spring to mind immediately. Can I give you more than one name?
No, don't worry. I'm not going to make you play favourites. Yet another question that put you on the hot seat. Pokuah Frimpong, I am done. Bring us home.
No, well, you know what? I think she was going to say Grace Smart, a fellow Canberra resident. You know what, Grace? And fair enough, because now I know the people from Canberra named as Grace no ball, and I have lots of respect for that territory. Is Canberra a territory? It's not a state. That's right. Grace Gill, thank you for joining us on the pod.
Thanks very much, guys. A pleasure as always.
Appreciate it. And to catch all the latest news about the Women's World Cup, you can find us on keepup.com.au and keep up on all our social medias. And to listen back to this pod, you can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and anywhere else you find your podcast. I've been Pokuah Frimpong. Thank you very much.